Earthlings of the interwebs, my name's Ben Eaton. Welcome to episode 8 of the Widdly Diddly Way. On today's episode we're going to have a bit of a talk about the CAGED system. My last video I did was kind of all about the cage, but I kind of skipped over a lot of the theory. So today we're going to have a look at the theory behind the CAGED. But don't be scared, it's all very simple. Before we do any more, can you jump onto my Instagram, my YouTube, my Facebook, and give them all a like and a subscribe, please. It just helps keep the numbers up and keep my 15 screaming children fed. I also have a podcast called the Performing Musicians Podcast. Please come and check all that out. So let's get into some cage principle stuff. So in that little thing I just played there, there's a whole bunch of cage principle stuff going on. And what I did was I moved up systematically through each form or position. So what does a cage principle stand for? It stands for C, A, G, E, and D. CAGED. Now it's a system that we can roll out across the guitar in order to make it easier for us to be musical, using our arpeggios and also using our partials and chord voicings. So when we look at the CAGED system, what we're looking at is C, A, G, E, and D. Right, so that's a C in a C form, C in an A form, C in a G form, C in an E form, C in a D form. What does that mean? Each chord, we're using the shape of the chord in which the partials are laid out. So our partials are our intervals, which means how far we are away from the root note. So when we're looking at any musical system, we're looking at the key. And in this case, we're playing in C. So we've got C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So that's all our intervals. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. Now each one of these chords we're only looking at 3 notes, just 3. C, we're looking at E, and we're looking at G. That is the first, the third, the major third, and the fifth. That's the same for any chord. If you play just a straight chord, guitar chord, you're always looking at just 3 notes. Okay? And how these notes are laid out determines what each shape is. So our first shape, we're laying out our intervals, 1, 3, 5, and then 1 again. That's our first shape, our C form chord. Our second shape lays out the intervals like this, 1, 5, 1, and 3. And that's our A form chord, 1, 5, 1, and 3. Our next shape is our G form chord. Right, we've got 5, 1, 3, 1. Our next form is our E form. We've got 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. And our last shape is our D form. 1, 5, 1, 3. All those intervals that I'm saying, the 1, the 3, and the 5, are the same notes repeated up and down the neck in different octave spaces. We can also use our cage to find the octaves of all of our notes. So if we're playing C in C form, we've got 1 and 1. A form, we've got our C and our C there. That's our same note, laid out on different strings. We're playing our G form. We're playing our E form. That's where our octaves are. That's all our octaves in C. And then we've got our last shape in tune. So the CAGED principle is really good for giving us different voices of the same chord. So if I'm playing a C down here, and I want to double something up, I can play a C up here as well. Okay, so it's different ways to be musical. It's different ways to voice the same notes to make it sound musical and lovely. We also use the CAGED principle for the little partials and scale shapes. Each CAGED form has a scale shape which goes along with it, but that's a little bit too much for this video. So just to go over it all again, C, A, G, E, D, the same three notes laid out across the neck in different intervallic patterns. And intervals are just the distance from the root note inside the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1. There you have it, that's our CAGED system. It's a really simple tool, but it's incredibly useful. Jimi Hendrix popularised it, Stevie Ray Vaughan, a lot of blues players, John Mayer, basically anyone who's a session musician or does a lot of work on stage uses this because it sounds great. Please head over to my Instagram, my Facebook, the YouTubes. It's all Ben Eaton Music, and everything you can link to from my website, www.beneatonmusic.com. Everything's there. Also, please check out my podcast, the Performing Musicians Podcast, talking to a bunch of amazing musicians from all over the world about their lives, their experiences, and how they're dealing with COVID. So there you go. That's the CAGED system. I'll see you next week.